Today is how to live with love and compassion. And so, welcome everyone. And there's a lot of new people on here. So, I am going to organize all the information in a logical, systematic presentation so that it makes sense to you. So, basically, I am looking at this little tiny piece of paper that I am going to turn into an hour and a half of spiritual information in teaching, using my connection to the angels and connection to wisdom to provide you spiritual knowledge in a very easy to understand format. Okay, the whole goal of this is to understand it so you can apply it to your own life and start to live it. Because if you don't fully understand it and know how to apply it, then it's pretty much pointless. So how I discovered this information and how I saw this whole big picture that I'm about to explain to you was actually on Easter weekend. I was, I had emergency surgery on my gallbladder, and I was in the hospital for about 3 days. So what happened was when I got to the ER, in the height, we know Easter weekend was pretty much the height of COVID-19. I decided to look at the energy before me and around me through a higher lens. And I'm going to explain what that is in this class today. So here on Earth, as humans, we are trained to look at things through a third dimensional lens. In the third dimensional lens, one would say, in my situation in the hospital, why is this happening to me, right? When we learn how to look at life through a much higher vibrating lens, so today we're going to learn a lot about fifth dimension, which is the dimension of love and compassion, one would say to themselves, why is this happening for me? How is this happening for me? So what I said to myself was, this is happening for me to see what? So this is happening to me to see blank. So those of you that are watching this and taking notes, the angels would like for you to write that down, because we're so trained to look at things through the third dimensional lens. And when you say to yourself in the third dimension here on Earth as a human, that this is happening to me, it starts to put you in a victim role. And so we're going to talk about more. I'm going to discuss that more as we move along. So when you look at a situation that is completely out of your control, the first reaction a human would have is to feel helpless. And when you say to yourself, this is here for me to see blank, you start to see beyond the helplessness. So some of you are new to me, Angelini, into the angels. So they're first going to have me get everybody on the same page so everyone can understand some of the language that I use, okay? So first they would like for me to discuss, why did the virus come? Why did the virus come to Earth? And the virus came to Earth because Earth, which is third dimension, okay, was at a certain vibration. And Earth was at a tipping point. And the tipping point was that Earth was either going to move forward with a much higher vibration. That was one choice. Or Earth was going to move forward with a much lower vibration. And I want you to think of Earth as third dimension. Your loved ones that are in heaven, or if you don't use heaven, think of the other side, okay? Or think of the universe. Those that have loved ones on the other side, your loved ones are in fourth dimension or higher. So when I do mediumship and I connect to your loved ones, those that are higher drop down to fourth, and that's where I pick them up, okay? There are much higher dimensions and realms from fourth dimension. So we're in third, your loved ones are in fourth, and you can actually get to fourth dimension through meditation, through daydreaming, through using your imagination and your creativity. And next, you would vibe up one level to fifth dimension. And fifth dimension is actually reigned by the Christ consciousness. And if you do not believe in Christ, just think of the vibrations of love and compassion. And that's what we're going to discuss today. And so when Earth was at this tipping point, it became imperative for Earth and heaven, the other side, to sync up. Because in an energetic world, so think of our bodies are energy, nature's energy, the other side is energy, anything that's alive is energy, okay? And within this energetic world, there is duality. And I want you to think of duality of two opposite ends of the spectrum. There is light and dark. There is good and bad. There is white and black, right? The middle is harmony. So we can't find harmony in the middle unless we have duality. So in order for Earth, so Earth is the dark to heaven's light, okay? And heaven is the light to Earth's dark. There's duality, but it's not good and bad in that instance. It's just that there needs to be two opposite ends of a spectrum in order for there to be harmony in our atmosphere. So when Earth started to vibe at a much lower vibration, something needed to come to alter and shift the vibration of Earth. And remember, we're human, and we are here on Earth. We are one of the most high vibrating beings. Some of the highest vibrating beings are actually animals. So elephants and dolphins vibrate quite high, okay? But we do, if we look at our vibration here on Earth, humans do have a higher vibration. If you compare human vibration here on Earth to the other side, we actually vibrate really low. Okay, so see the duality? So since we're energetic beings here on Earth, our vibration needed to be altered in order to alter the planet that houses us. Okay, so unfortunately, humans do not go inward unless it's a catastrophic time. We just don't. So usually we all live in our third dimensional lives, and we go to the grocery store and we go get gas, and we live in cause and effect. And as humans, we are trained to be reactionary, and we are also trained to become one with the stories of our lives here. They feel very, very, very real to us. The people that you encounter, the people in your families, everything feels very real. But our human lives in comparison to the other side is actually an illusion. So since everything feels very real in 3D, the other side needed to help us, okay? Whether we call that spirit, right, needed to come and help us. So in order to do that, our vibrations as humans needed to be altered. So the virus came, and the virus came because humans do not go inward unless it's a catastrophic time. And basically, this virus disabled all of humanity and it affected the world globally. And so it became a global issue. And before the virus came, we were all separated intensely by countries and by genders and by race and by religion and by power and whatnot. And this virus doesn't come with those parameters, right? So it could, affect anyone. It does affect humans all differently, but it is a vibration. So depending on the vibration of the soul inside your body, that's energy, right? The virus affects everyone quite differently. Okay, so the virus came, so we all have an understanding that the spiritual interpretation of this virus was for it to come to alter human vibration. And through this process, if we choose to look at the virus through a fifth dimensional lens, and we say, this is happening for me to see blank, you will start to see everything that I'm about to teach you today. So this virus came at a specific time, our time, because remember, we have a time continuum here on earth, but on the other side in heaven, there isn't a time continuum. So this happened now because it was imperative that third dimension and fifth dimension merged together as one. And the virus was a big, conduit to make this all happen. And so when we're in heaven, when we're on the other side, we are all an energetic recipe connected to each other and connected to everything that's alive. And we are all recycled souls, and we come back again over and over again with the ultimate goal of raising the vibration of our soul. And the only way to raise the vibration of your soul is to come in a human body and be a spirit or a soul and have a human experience. And when you have the human experience, it raises the vibration of your soul. So when you do return back to fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimension, you actually have access to higher dimensions. And the only way to have access to higher dimensions is to come into a human body. Okay? So that's the big picture on why we come here. Now, once you are here, drinking my tea. Once you are here, you forget all of this. Okay? You do. You forget all of it. But you're all on here listening to me because you're remembering. Okay? Because it sounds familiar. There's something about it that's resonating. Okay? So when you come and you're in these beautiful, magnificent human bodies, and remember, these bodies are just a vessel to carry your beautiful soul. And in these bodies, we have a soul as a human, and your soul houses all the truths about you. And your soul houses everything that you've mastered. And within your soul, there is a blueprint. And the blueprint is a map of all about you. and everything that you've mastered in all your past lives, everything that you've been through. So, also in your physical body is an ego. And the ego is a teaching device. And the ego houses all your negative emotions and everything that you need to learn. Okay? And these two don't talk to each other. You are the middleman between the soul and the ego. So, as humans, we are trained to look at this virus through the lens of the ego, to look at it through fear, because there are people dying and there are people suffering. And that I understand. But I'm here to tell you, through a third dimensional lens, that is a very scary place to live. Okay? I'm here to help you see today that through the soul, we can actually see all the beauty behind it. Okay? And when someone is suffering and someone is dying, there is a greater reason behind it, behind a third dimensional human lens. And there are energies that are helping them. And it may be that their soul, if they do cross over from this virus, that their soul has a purpose in one of the other dimensions. And they're going to go on and help us here. Okay? But we can't see that through a third dimensional human lens. We only are trained to see the suffering. We're not trained to see the energetic transitions that are happening inside their body. Because if you saw it, it's actually quite peaceful. Okay? When the physical body breaks down through the human eyes, it looks very, very scary. But when you look at it through the energetics, when a human body breaks down and dies, it's actually quite peaceful. Okay? So, third and fifth dimensions have merged, and they started to merge in March. And when they merged, it forged humanity to divide into 3 camps. So I started originally to call these groups, and Spirit corrected me because they like it to be camps. And so I'm calling them camps, and I'm going to quickly tell you about the camps because not all of you have heard this from me before. And so the camps are 3 different camps. And this is key to know because this is tied to the teaching on love and compassion. So the virus came and it either directly or indirectly affected the vibration of all of us, whether you have had it or not, because you live on Earth and the virus is here. And when it happened, you all fell into one of these 3 camps. Camp A, think of them as spiritualists. Think of Camp A as people that are here on Earth that for the last 10, 12, 15, 20 years have done mindfulness work on themselves and have been on an internal path. They're calling it internal path of beauty. And so these beings, people in Camp A are very high vibrating individuals that have the ability and the capacity to see this big picture I am explaining to you today and fully understand it. And this group of people understand that there is a soul and an ego, and they have full understanding when they're in their soul and when they're in their ego. And it's not to say they don't go into their ego, right? It's not to say that they don't go into fear and they don't go into anger, because you wouldn't be human. You right? You would be saintly. So we're all human. So this group of people know the difference, and most of them are in either a helping field or have a desire to help, and they know for the most part what their life purpose is. Okay. They're calling this first camp the fully awakened. So this is the fully awakened human. Camp B. Camp B is another group of beautiful people. And for a couple years to some months, or a few months from now, they're saying a few months ago, this group started to awaken. And this is the group that they call the newly awakened. And the newly awakened group is looking around them and starting to see synchronicities like 777 and 1111. And they're seeing that it just looks so much brighter outside. And although the world is changing and shifting, they can still see that the glass is half full. And so this group is starting to recognize that they may be in relationships that are not serving them well, or a career that's not serving them well, and that their vibration is uplifting, but the life around them here on earth in 3D isn't matching that. And they have a longing and a desire to move forward to get the two to match. And there's a very large group of you since the month of, I'd say March, or January, February, March, have started to undergo some spiritual connections because you've reached out to me and started to have an awakening. So I want you to understand that you're an intricate piece of the puzzle, because you're experiencing awakening, because your soul is being called forward further. Okay. So this group right now is learning. They're learning how to move forward. They're questioning what is happening to me. I have this all knowing. I just feel like I'm seeing things I haven't seen before. So there is a learning and a knowing that is happening in this group. Okay. Now, Camp C is another large group of humans, and all three of these groups are every human here on earth right now is being called forward in their truth. Everyone is receiving an opportunity to walk in their true life path, to walk in their soul. Okay. Camp C is a group of people that spirit calls asleep. They're spiritually asleep. So they are hearing the call forward, but they're hearing it either consciously or subconsciously, and they're hitting the dismiss button. They're hitting the snooze button, and they're going to attempt to live their life as how Earth was before. And they're going to continue to have the same behaviors and the same thought process and the same methodology. And this group isn't going to feel the need for any changes within themselves. Okay. So we have the spiritualist group, and this is the awakened, the fully awakened. We have the B is the newly awakened, anyone experiencing a spiritual awakening. And then Camp C is those that are asleep. Now, A is not better than C. It is just what we're all ready to do as humans connected to our soul. Okay. At any given time, someone from Camp C could move over to Camp B. Okay. So today's teaching has to do with love and compassion. And you can see that within these three camps, there needs to be a whole lot of love and compassion. Because if Camp A is moving forward out of fear, and then all of a sudden someone from Camp C says a derogatory comment or says something that's angry or makes, is shameful, then Camp A, right, is the camp that is going to see the bigger picture, and this is what we're going to learn about today, so that they can remain in love and shine love on Camp C. Okay. Camp B is slightly a little bit different because there's a learning curve here, and there are stages within Camp B that we'll talk about in which you kind of like try to analyze and figure things out. Okay. And so that's part of the process, the spiritual process to take a B into an A. Okay. So I'm going to get a little more specific as we go along. Okay. So Camp A is we're all going to eventually leave our houses and reemerge back into the world. But the world as we once knew it has ended. It energetically, it has ended. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what I foresee is going to happen. So basically, the world has ended as we know it, but it doesn't mean bad, okay? It just means that it's going to be different. So different means it's just not the same. And so we're all going to reemerge back out of our houses, and Camp A is going to find life quite easy, okay? Because the energy is light and bright and free-flowing and expansive. C is going to reemerge and struggle because remember, we live in the law of attraction, and this is the manifesting realm. So they're going to struggle, but they have every opportunity to uplift and move from this camp and see it differently. Okay. B is going to reemerge and pretty much fluctuate between the two. Okay, so this is when the learning comes in, learning what pieces of you are in Camp C and what pieces of you are in A, and making sense of it. Okay, so as we reemerge, we have all these different energies, and we all have to attempt to live as one. And so this is where the love and compassion comes in, is the secret to a peaceful life is love and compassion. And the angels in spirit wanted me to teach this today because everybody has an opportunity to understand and actually live with true love and in true compassion. But there isn't a necessarily, let me see what they're saying, like up until this point it's been misunderstood, and we're having Angel Amy clarify that today, exactly what it is. Okay, so first they're going to have me discuss what is real love, like what really is love. Because as humans, we think that we know love, but what is real love from the energetics behind love is quite different than what we think is love. So a third dimensional lens, they're describing love as, I love you and I love all aspects of you and I accept you. And I accept the good, the bad, and the indifferent. Pretty much how a mom sees a child, right? For the most part. But love, the energetics behind love is deeper. And so, okay, so they're switching it up on me. So the angels, the whole first part is my teaching with the angels. So now they're going to start to bring me Jesus. So if you do not believe in Jesus, it's okay, he's saying. He wants you to just take in the energetics of it. Just feel Amy's words. Okay. Okay. Let me take off my bracelet. As humans, when you're born, the emotional component in a child typically develops between the ages of 3 and it goes to like 7 to 10. And everything that happens in the child's life during that time is super crucial because your physical bodies are energy. And your physical bodies house your soul, and you lose sight of how to connect to your soul. And so as a human, you connect to your soul through emotions. And you connect to your soul as little girls and little boys through love and compassion and peace and hope and harmony and joy. And when you're a little girl or a little boy and you start to feel love, your physical body, the cells inside your body capture some of the love. And you go on into your teen years, in your 20s, in your 30s, and so on. And since this is a third dimension, and this is the manifesting realm, you are like a magnet and you attract loving people and loving situations through that love. And when you're a little girl and a little boy, you also have an ego. And the ego houses all the negative emotions, the anger and the regret and the guilt and the shame and the blame and the abandonment. And you go again into your teen years and your 20s and your 30s and so on. And through the law of attraction over third dimensional time, you also, like a magnet, attract people that make you feel angry and resentful and shameful and so on. Okay. So when someone stands before you and they appear very, very, very angry. Amy had mentioned through the angels in the beginning that your first reaction is to say, they're yelling at me, this is happening to me. And if you can take a moment and take a breath and come back into your physical body and learn to find all the safety within you, all the peace within you, you will begin to look at the person through a new lens. And this is the fifth dimensional lens of love and compassion Amy is teaching today. Because when someone has an angry reaction to you or angry behavior, they have a wound. If they're an adult, their wound is from childhood, and they are angry at you through a wound. And here's the real love, is that if you begin to take a breath and find safety in your body, it will separate you from what is yours, what belongs to you, and what belongs to the other person. And if you pause, you'll find that you won't join in. And in that moment, if you say to yourself, this person is yelling at me, but I love myself. And I love myself, period. And you begin to feel love in your being and love in your physical body. You'll be able to start to see beyond their anger, and you'll start to see their wound. And when you're able to see their wound, you're able to look at them through compassion, which Amy's going to discuss in a little bit. And so we can't fully love others that wrong us until we learn to love ourselves. And a big, big, big piece of this puzzle is to own your piece in it. So the first step is ownership, and to own that through the law of attraction in the third dimension, you have manifested this person, or you have attracted this person to teach you something. So Amy chooses to teach you through this way. She wants to teach you, and she wants to make you laugh and wants to make this fun, and she chooses to teach you this way. But Amy is no better than the man in jail, because the man in jail also teaches you, but he doesn't teach you the same way that Amy teaches you, but the energetics are the same. So this is about owning your piece of the puzzle and why you attracted in the angry person, or insert whatever emotion this other person makes you, or situation makes you feel. So when you are able to own your own piece of it and find peace in your own physical body and recognize that the other person has a wound, you're able to operate from love. So this is actually the love that Jesus taught about. But all the writers during that time that wrote about his teachings, that wrote about how to apply this to your everyday life, were actually the females and his female followers. But because at the time the females were not recognized, a lot of this information got buried, right? So now we're going to learn about it in 2020. So that is the real love. So learning how to love yourself will give you clarity on how to love your enemies. Okay? So they want me to add this piece in. Many of you on watching this video have children. All the children aged 20 and under are all very old souls. So all the children that are here on earth currently that are aged 20 and under are very old souls. And your children have mastered what real love is. And so when we all go to parent these old souls, it's recognizing that they have a certain innate wisdom inside of them, and parenting them through a lens of their perception. So a parent's intention and a child's perception are two very different things. And these old souls long to have a connection with their parents, and they long to have a connection with everyone, because they are so connected and rooted in love and compassion. And so when you parent them, these are the angels. The angels' biggest advice is to parent through the lens of their perception, in holding space and understanding what their needs are, and and listening and hearing where they're coming from. You may not agree with it, but just have an understanding of where they're coming from, because they came to teach you, okay? They came to teach the adults. And so we have disconnected adults parenting connected children right now. And so all these little children, 20 and under, have souls that are emitting love and compassion and joy and high vibrations into the world. And they're altering the earth's vibration just from being here. And the more we silence them and the more we parent them through our own wounds, we are suppressing their energies, okay? And so I'm sure they're going to have me roll out a parenting class after this, but they wanted me to add that piece in because so many of you are home with your children right now, and it's tough, but they are teaching you, okay? What you think they need, they may not. So listen, okay? Okay, so let's do steps to compassion. The definition of compassion is the ability to understand the emotional state of another person or oneself. So compassion gets deeply confused with empathy. And many of you call yourselves empaths, but I call you compassionists. So I'm going to teach you the difference, so you know if you're an empath or a compassionist. I don't even know if that's a word, but they're two different vibrations, and I'm going to explain the difference so you can have a deeper understanding of who you are as a soul and as a person. So compassion does get confused with empathy. Compassion has the added element of having a desire to alleviate or reduce the suffering of another, okay? So when I was in the hospital and I asked myself, this is happening for me to see blank, and I saw people deeply suffering, I started to notice that I would energetically connect to them and want to alleviate their suffering. So in that moment, I said, I'm not the only one that can do this. So we have a large group of people walking around that call themselves empaths, and they're really compassionate souls, which is a further step from empathy, okay? So when you feel like you want to alleviate the pain, that's when you intertwine with the energy and you take it on as if it's your own, okay? The alleviating part, the wanting to take it away, makes it compassion. Empathy, as most of you know, is the ability to put oneself in the other person's place. So although compassion and empathy are two separate things, having compassion for someone can lead to feeling empathy for another person. So if you start to feel compassionate, like you want to alleviate it, that means that you're actually putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So compassion is when you start to take on the energy involved in the empathy. Okay? So this is where I would start to talk to you about boundary work. So if you naturally, and these are my little 20-year-old and under, right, my little ones, if you can naturally start to feel yourself starting to link onto someone's energy and want to alleviate it, this is when I start to teach the young ones about boundaries. Because if boundaries are not taught when you're younger, you can start to, this can get confused with they need to give me the word. It can get confused with, sorry, enabling. So you could start to, enabler are really compassionate without boundaries. So it's a compassionate individual that doesn't have boundaries, that isn't necessarily in touch with what they need. So an enabler loses sight of their beautiful soul and their place in the relationship. Okay. So although the above, what I just explained is the accepted definition of compassion, I believe that having compassion for someone involves more than putting yourself in their place and generally wanting to understand or even help them. It involves beginning to have a totally different perspective when it comes to how you perceive others. Okay? For example, instead of assuming that the reason someone has done something that hurts you is because they are selfish or inconsiderate, assume instead that they had a good reason for doing it. So remember, they have a wound. They have a wound inside of them. Okay? This can be difficult to buy into at first, but when you think about it, don't you usually have a good reason when you do something, even if what you did may seem inconsiderate to someone else? Let's say you are very worried about your child's health. You took him or her to the doctor and he decided to take tests in order to rule out a serious disease. Later that day, you're walking down the street, preoccupied with your daughter. An acquaintance passes you and says hello. You say hello in return, but because you are so deep in thought, you don't stop to chat. Later on, you hear the acquaintance felt insulted because you snubbed her. Even though it was not your intention to snub this person, and you had a very good reason for your behavior, the acquaintance, just naturally being human, assumes the worst. Unfortunately, this is what most of us do. We assume the worst. Learning to have more compassion involves making the radical shift to assume the best in others. If the acquaintance had assumed the best, she would have concluded that it wasn't personal, that you must have been preoccupied, and she would have been right. So, this is when I say the human mind is a very scary place, and humans make assumptions, and assumptions are connected to the ego, and assumptions are outside of the truth. And the only way to discover what is the truth, if something is bothering you about someone, is to ask them. And then you trust that the person is telling you the truth. So it's very natural for humans to make assumptions, but if you can be mindful that assumptions start in the mind because we perceive with our eyes what we saw, and start to look beyond human perception, you'll start to look at everything through a lens of compassion and give the person the benefit of the doubt, and say that this person has something going on, and there's a reason for the behavior. Now, they want me to tell you this: anybody that acts angry, or they want me to use anger. So even if a child acts angry or an adult acts angry, there is a wound. There is something deeper going on that needs to be addressed. Okay, with adults, if it's not your child, if it is your child, it's great to get to the deeper reason for the anger. Okay, if it's an adult, and you are living with them or you're connected to them, you can attempt to get to the heart of the anger if they will allow you to, right? If that's the right thing to do, if you discern that's the right thing to do. If not, then that's when you're going to stay in your own love and your own truth, and you're going to send love and light to the angry person, okay? In hopes that they are able to shift it themselves, because we're all sovereign beings. We're all sovereign beings here on earth, and the only person that we're responsible for are ourselves, unless you have small children. Okay. So the next step to to living in compassion is to look at the world around you. So this is an observation type energy. And when I was talking about the three camps, this is the biggest thing, or one of the first stages of spiritual awakening is to observe. So camp B does a lot of observing. Stand back and look at your family and friends with a new perspective or lens. You can look at everyone in your life from your perspective for who they truly are, good, bad, and indifferent. You can note their strengths and their weaknesses. You look through a factual lens, not a lens of how they make you feel, okay? The only time we do the lens of how they make you feel is when we're trying to heal your wound, okay? So you may want to write that down. So when you're in a healing zone, when you're looking to heal one of your wounds, you're going to ask yourself how they make you feel. Through a lens of compassion, you're going to start to look at them very simply through a factual lens. And a lot of you have heard me talk about radical acceptance. And radical acceptance is when you decide to radically accept that someone or a situation is what it is. And you have radical acceptance to that it isn't going to change. And when you radically accept, you detach from the outcome of what's going to happen. And you feel lighter and you feel brighter. And I guess radical acceptance is a very fancy way of saying surrender. Okay? So the goal isn't to reform these individuals, because remember, they're not necessarily asking you for help. Everyone needs to stay in their own lane and row their own boat, right? And reform themselves. So in this step, we're just accepting that it is what it is. Okay? Now, they want me to discuss self-compassion. So, I'm pausing because I translate this and I sometimes sound a little judgy when I say it. So they want me to tweak it a little. So it makes me laugh because it sounds judgy. But sometimes as a human, I just talk direct. Okay. They'll make me laugh. They're telling me to pretty it up. Okay. We talked about real love, and we can't fully love another unless we love ourselves. So they want all of you to think about the negative self-talk, right? There's a whole slew of females on here watching this, and males. And when you talk about your physical body, right? And how it looks and how you feel inside the body and what we think in our minds about ourselves is abusive. It's abusive behavior. And so we can't truly love another until we fully embrace and accept ourselves and love ourselves. So a big piece of this is learning self-compassion. And so self-compassion or self-love is a very foreign concept to a lot of people. And so this is especially true for those that were raised in abusive homes or unloving homes. Because when you're a small child and you live in abuse and you live or you feel unloved as a child, you develop what are known in spirituality as limiting beliefs. And you adapt these limiting beliefs as your own, okay? And those of us that were born into families with multiple siblings, there's actually a pecking order, so to speak, on who can do what better than who and who does what and who's prettier and the whole thing. It gets crazy. So when you're in this energy when you're little, it's all you know, it feels real to you. So you develop limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are things like I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough to go out with that boy. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. The biggest one that we say as humans is I can't handle it. So I want you to note every time that you say you can't handle it. And we're going to turn that into realizing how strong you are and finding and connecting to the strength and the resiliency within. Because the I can't handle it is when you say, this is happening for me, not happening to me. Okay, that's the shift there. So for those who were raised in abusive or unloving homes, um, compassion may have been non-existent at times. And self-compassion refers to a way of relating to the self with kindness and being kind to yourself, okay? It's not to be confused with arrogance or conceit. That's not what this is about, which usually indicates a lack of self-compassion and kindness, to be honest, towards the self. But it entails being gentle, supportive, and understanding, rather than harshly judging oneself for personal shortcomings. The self is offered warmth and unconditional acceptance. In other words, being kind to ourselves in good times and in bad times, in sickness and in health, even when we make mistakes. So we are all human, okay? And you can see, even while I'm channeling all this information, at times I have to pause because I'm human and understand the translation and understand what they're telling me. And if I don't get it, I'm going to look at all of you and say, I don't know, or I don't know the answer because I'm human. And that's a much freer way of looking at life, because if I decide to get hung up on doing it all perfectly or trying to do it like somebody else, it would never happen. It would completely hold me back. So how many times do we say, as a lot of women on here, I'll do it when I lose 10 pounds, right? I'll do it when I lose 20 pounds, right? And so I think at some point, it's moving on from that mentality and having compassion for where you are in the moment and having kindness and saying to yourself, you know, I'm going to accept myself in the good times, in the bad times, in sickness and in health. We say it during marriage to the other person, right? So we need to first look inward and have compassion for our beautiful selves and not live in such rigid perfection, right? So focus on a gentleness within, because once you start to have this methodology of just living and looking at yourself compassionately, with kindness, it starts to shine outward towards others. Okay. Now, they want me to break down empathy further. So, empathy is definitely a buzzword right now. Empathy is simply recognizing emotions in others. And all your kids, 20 and under, are all feeling everybody's emotions. And it may not be in their minds, but they know everything about you. Okay. They know when you're having a good day and they know when you're having a bad day. Okay. So they're all empathetic beings. And being an empathetic being means that you put yourself in another person's shoes. So you're understanding the other person's perspective and their human reality. To be empathetic, you have to think beyond yourself and your own concerns. So your beautiful soul has energy, and the energy comes outside your body, and it basically collects the energy of another person. And so once you see beyond your own world and you realize that your energy is leaving your body and collecting another person's energy, you realize that there's so much more to discover about our world and appreciate, because it's so easy to have your energy leave your body and collect someone else's. These physical bodies are amazing, and it makes you think, like, what else can I do? So people that are accused of being egotistical and selfish or lacking a healthy perspective have often missed the big picture. That they think that they're the only one, they're the only person in the world, right? Um, and there's billions of other people in the world. And so if you start to find yourself in a conversation with someone that is acting one-sided, I just wanted to give you some tips and tools on how to operate, or how to move forward, and how to live in love and compassion while this person is basically attacking. And I want to let you know how I got to this. I did a little secret thing. So I don't know, like maybe a week ago, on my I have a personal Facebook page and I have my Angel Amy page. And the Angel Amy page only is channeled messages, and I promote classes and whatnot. On my personal page, it's personal, and there's pictures of my family and whatnot. So I kind of sort of did a post test about President Trump, and there is nothing that will divide a world further than politics. And I made a post about President Trump's comment in regards to the disinfectant. And I watched what happened, and I think I let it maybe go on for maybe a little too long, but maybe a day and a half before I took it down. And I just wanted to see through my own lens of how humans talk to each other when they don't know each other and what they say. And it's like mind-blowing to me, because it's so easy to have your opinion and give it without a lens of compassion. Okay. So this wasn't to judge everybody. This was to observe human behavior so that I could come up with tips on how to teach you how to live this, because you're always going to have someone, it's part of humanity, right? To have someone that has their own belief system and won't back down is relentless. And it's you, right? Okay. So my first tip is to your when someone is coming at you with their own beliefs, is to first come inside your body and find all the safety within. Because the minute you join them, you are giving up your own personal power. So the minute you join them in the anger, you have now left your beautiful soul, and now you're in the ego. And now we have fire attacking fire. Okay. So once you find peace within and you're able to separate from them, so you notice that they're angry, and in this instance it was a whole lot of defending Trump. So I had one defending Trump, going, right? And I just could feel all the peace and the love for her, like deep love. I actually wrote, I love you. Like I did. Sounds crazy, but I think she knows that I'm all about the love. So once you find the safety, you're going to put aside your viewpoint and try to see things from the other person's point of view, even if you don't agree. Just, this is when I say hold space. Just listen, even if you think it's nuts. Just listen and take it in, okay? Because the minute you feel defensive or reactionary to it, you're actually it's trudging up a wound inside of you. Okay, then we got to do some healing work. So when you do this, you realize that the other person most likely aren't being evil. They're not being unkind, even though it sounds like they are, right? Or stubborn or unreasonable. They're probably just reacting to the situation with the knowledge that they have. So when someone is angry and they're yelling at you because of your opinion, they need more information, but they don't even realize that they need more information. So see, if you can look at them through a lens of compassion, you're going to see that this is when I sound judgy. They don't like this, but they're limited. They're limited outside their scope of energetic knowledge. Okay. It's best to validate the other person's perspective. So I often say, I hear you, because I do. I hear you. But remember, just from you saying I hear you doesn't mean that the energy is leaving your body and that you're owning what they say. You're still in your safe space inside your body, and you're just letting them know that you can hear their words. And then once you see why others believe what they believe, just acknowledge it. Okay, I can understand that you feel that way, right? And remember, acknowledgement does not always equal agreement. Please write that down. Acknowledgement doesn't equal agreement. You can accept that people have different opinions from your own, and that they may have good reason to hold these opinions, but it doesn't mean it's your opinion. And the minute you react with anger from their anger, you're allowing the person to steal from you. Okay, do we understand that? So the minute someone is angry and you start to get angry back, the person is stealing you from your truth, but you're allowing it. Okay, so this is how I teach how to hold your own personal power with difficult people. Next, if you're struggling with this, the angels are saying to examine your attitude. Look at your body language. Are you tense? Right? Because that may tell us we need to do a little healing work, okay? If you're tense or if you have attitude back, okay? Or are you more concerned with just getting your own way or winning and just being right? Sometimes we need to accept that it isn't about being right. And humans always just want to be right. They want to be validated. So, without an open mind and an attitude, you probably won't have enough room for empathy. So listen to the entire message that the other person is trying to communicate. Listen with your ears. What is being said and what tone is being used? Just observe and note it. It doesn't mean it's your own opinion. So their energy is completely separate from yours. So this is the teaching. We got to stay inside the bodies. Okay. Listen with your eyes. What is a person doing with his or her own body while speaking? So listen with your instincts. Do you sense that the person is not communicating something important? Listen with your heart. What do you think the other person feels? So when you start to use your senses and observe, it starts to take you to empathy. Okay. You could ask the other person to explain their position. This is probably the simplest and most direct way to understand the other person. And that way you're not making assumptions. However, it's probably the least used way to develop empathy. So the most used way, the best way to understand someone is kind of stay inside the body and observe and look at the person as a whole, okay? So now, okay, the next step to empathy is mindfulness. So you're going to practice mindfulness, which is, mindfulness is like you can, just what we were talking about, you can mentally stand back and observe someone's behavior while you engage in a normal process of life. So, for instance, it's possible in conversations to stay safe inside your body while the other person is talking, and you're mindful of what they're saying and you're mindful of their actions, but basically you're still staying inside your body, okay? So we want to start to practice a little more mindfulness um, in relation to others, and be mindful of your own behavior and be mindful of your own actions towards them, okay? And just try to approve upon it. So you're basically self-observing, okay? Okay, now we just have 15 more minutes. So the angels are going to transition me to 15 minutes of what the world is going to look like, and tie this whole thing into love and compassion. So, okay. So like Amy said, as we re-emerge back into the world, there are these three camps, right? And a large percentage of society doesn't really have an understanding that they are in these camps and what that means. So as we move forward, we are going to notice that Earth, or they're saying your everyday life, is going to change in some ways from how it was before. So before, most of you would get up and you would go to work, or you would go to the gym, and you would live your life, what you would call your normal everyday life. But now, as we move forward, there are going to be new process and procedures involved because of the virus. The angels are saying there are different phases that are about to unfold, and there may even be a time that it looks like we move forward and then we retract again. So as this process happens, the angels are saying to learn how to be adaptable and learn how to pivot and accept, right? And that looking at things through a higher lens. So as we move forward, in a perfect world, we would have a vaccination, and the vaccination would then put everybody on the same playing field. But because Earth is now moving forward with love and compassion, there needs to be an identified grouping. So I taught you today, this is Amy, I taught you guys today about Camp A and Camp B and Camp C, right? But unless you take this class, you're not really, or watch this video, you're not really going to know about Camp A, Camp B, and Camp C. What you are going to know about is if you have had the virus and you're immune, or if you haven't had the virus and you're not immune, okay? So what's going to happen is we're going to be eventually divided into these two camps within the three camps, okay? And those that are immune are going to move forward with privileges, let's say, that the non-immune do not have. And so they're going to be able to ride on buses and planes safely and travel and do certain things. And the non-immune for a while are not going to have all these same privileges and are going to have restrictions. So when you take humans and you divide them into groups, are those that are not going to be able to handle it. And those that are not going to be able to handle it and accept it are in Camp C, okay? And are not going to be able to accept that they're not able to do certain things for a certain amount of time. So this whole division looks, from a third dimensional lens, like a division. It looks like there's a wall between immune and not immune, okay? But really, through the fifth dimensional lens, through a lens of compassion, we're all able to see a much broader view, and we're able to look at each other through a lens of love. And when someone is flipping out because they can't do a certain thing, they are flipping out because they have a wound that needs to be healed, and they're angry. So that's when you're going to start to use my teaching in everyday life. You're going to use the angels' teaching about looking at these angry individuals through a lens of love and through a lens of compassion. And it's difficult to do when someone's angry and they're yelling at you. right? So you're going to practice this if you choose. Now, if you choose to practice this and you choose to have a deeper understanding of this, that means that you're connected to your soul, and your soul is a much higher vibration than your physical body. And your soul is going to be aligned with all the good in the world, and things are going to be easier for you. Okay, so this is the easy way to move forward, is to practice love and compassion for those that are miserable. Okay, so first what's going to happen is there's going to, of course, be the antibody test, and you hear all kinds of things on the news back and forth about this. And so they're going to get a clear test on who has had it and who hasn't. Okay, and once that takes place, we're going to start to notice that that people move forward either with, being immune or non immune, and you're going to begin to embrace those around you and accept, and those that are living with love and compassion, you're going to help those that aren't able to do certain things. Okay, and so we're going to start to see the immune people will be on the front lines of, let's say, healthcare, because they've already had it. They've already had the virus. And so it's not to say if you're in healthcare and you are not immune that you won't have a job. It's just that there's going to be a different way of life for a while, and in a different way of doing things. So it's going to alter your personal lives depending on what way this falls for you. Okay, and the number one thing is to just accept that you're in one, you're immune or not immune. Okay, and have compassion for yourself first, and have compassion for others. Okay, and then what's going to happen is we're going to start to see some new, they're saying like inventions, or I'm going to say inventions that are created to help us live life a little easier. And so what those are, I'm not really sure. But you're going to start to see some new inventions that are going to make life easier, and are going to become a part of our everyday lives. And they give me the example of, like, in World War II, the ballpoint pen was actually developed because everyone then could carry their own pen and not, pass certain ailments around. So, you're going to start to notice that different inventions that will go forward throughout the test of time will start to unfold. So there is a bigger recipe for all of this that we can't necessarily see. So I just want you to know that it's all going to be okay. Every person here on earth has a duty as a human to be kind. Be kind. Be kind even when you don't want to be kind. Be kind. And when someone isn't kind back, it's learning how to take a breath and come back into the body, and really just find self-love within you, that you love yourself whether someone is kind or not kind. Because really, that what's inside your soul doesn't alter. Another human can't alter your soul. They don't have that power. The only way that your soul can get altered is for you to work on you. So we hand over our personal power to people every day of our lives. And it's exhausting. And you're all tired because I'm looking at you. Okay? So stop handing over your power. You do that by owning your own emotions and coming right back into your body and finding the peace within. And so one of the ways that you can do this too is meditation. But those of you that have never done it or don't like it, just start with laying on your bed with like really peaceful music. Put John Mayer on, right? Do we know John Mayer? And just listen and start to come inside the body for 5 minutes. Okay? Just start there. Okay. So this is a big teaching today. This was a big teaching today on love and compassion and what love really looks like. And to have real love is work. But what will move you from camp B, remember the 3 camps, from camp B to camp A, is mastering real love. And it takes time, but once you do it, it is so rewarding. And it's not something that you have to think about all the time. It's almost like I say, you start to live peaceful in your body while all the bombs go off around you. So when I was in the hospital, this is where this big teaching unfolded, and I could see it so clearly, was that I was in the thick of all the fear, and I felt so peaceful and so harmonious. And I couldn't even live it. I couldn't even find fear. I couldn't even lean into it. And I started to see all the sick and the bombs going off around me. And I'm like, I need to teach this to people, right? Because it's so rewarding and you just stay in your happiness and your joy. But let me tell you, it takes time to get here, but it is possible. And you have all the answers inside of you, all the answers. So when you find that you're looking outside the body or you're asking someone for their opinion, please go inward. Please go in and see how you feel about it. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with that. I love you all. I hope you have an amazing weekend, rest of your weekend. It is gorgeous here in Massachusetts, for those that are in Massachusetts. Some of you are tuning in from Europe. It's nighttime, so I'm going to tell you nighty, night, night. I love you all, and I'll see you soon.